Now the final thing we see here is dealing with this in word problems. This can be kind of confusing. I know word problems are always kind of confusing for students, but again, don't get bogged down by all the information they give you. Just focus on what you need to focus on and get in, solve the problem, and get out. Don't get confused by all the words that are going on. And how we do that is we just read the last couple sentences first, and they will tell me what to do. So it says, find the zero of this function, describe what its value means in the context. So without actually doing anything, I just read these last few sentences and I know what I'm looking for without actually doing any work. So I'm going to find the zero of the function. Well, if I'm going to be finding a zero, just like we did a few videos ago, I'm just going to be solving for x. So I go and look for an equation. So here's the equation they give us. N equals 20 minus 2.75c. Now I just said we'd be solving for x. Well, obviously, we don't have any x's here. We have an n and we have a c. If we read the actual problem, it says Enrique uses a gift card to buy coffee at a coffee shop. The initial value of the gift card is $20. The function n equals 20 minus 2.75c represents the amount of money he still has left on the card n after purchasing c cups of coffee. So n is how much money he has left on the card. C is how many cups of coffee he's gotten. So we know n and c are the variables we're using. We know what they mean, but we need to know which one's x and which one's y. And there's a lot of ways you can do this. You can talk about independent and dependent variables, how y is always dependent, x is always independent. But really the easiest way to do this is whenever you have an equation, whatever variables inside the equation, what I call inside or what's hanging out with all the numbers, that's usually going to be your x. Whatever it's equal to is usually going to be your y. So another way we could write this would be y equals 20 minus 2.75x. When we do that, well, we clearly see there's an x now. So we're going to be solving for x, or in this case, we're going to be solving for c. So c is acting in the place of x. Now we're going to be solving for x, but to do that, I got to do something to my y. I can't solve this equation with the y still there because you can only solve for one equation at a time. So to solve this equation, I take my y and I turn it into a 0. That's one of the reasons why we call this solving for these zeros of an equation, or finding the zeros of an equation. So we make our y a 0, or our n a 0 if you want to talk about it that way. And then now we solve the equation. So to start off, we're going to subtract 20 over. And we get 0 minus 20 would just be negative 20. And then we get negative 2.75x. And then we divide by negative 2.75. So negative 20, divided by negative 2.75 would give us, and it's a repeating number, so I'm just going to write it as, I'm just going to cut it off. I'm just going to write 7.72 would be x. So that is our answer. Now it asks us to explain what it means. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means Enrique can get about 7 cups of coffee with his gift card. Now, we see a 0.27 here. He can't get a full 1/8 cup of coffee. He can only get 7 full cups. So we'd say he can get about 7 cups of coffee. And that's it for the review for section 3.2. If you have any questions, send me a message on Remind.